Welcome to FRC Media News for Thursday, September 8th, 2016. I'm Keith Tebow. On this week's show, we talk about the possibility of interim rail service coming to Fall River. The solar panels on the roof of Morton Middle School will soon be activated, and we'll have the winners of an entrepreneurship program in Fall River. But first, as we do each week, let's discuss the headlines of the week. Let's bring in Will Richmond, the digital news editor at the Fall River Herald News. Will, how are you?
I'm good, Keith. How's it going?
Good. Today is election day, believe it or not. Primary election day in the state of Massachusetts. Polls have been open since early this morning. Will close at 8 o'clock tonight if you're watching the show on our Thursday edition. And I'll tell you, Will, this has probably been one of the quietest statewide primaries that we've had in a long time, as just about I think all the local incumbents are running unopposed, at least when it comes to state legislature and the county seats.
Yeah, locally, for primary purposes, there are essentially no contested races. Yeah. The 9th congressional race, which includes essentially the south end of Fall River and Westport and heads out to the communities east from here. There is a primary for the Republican nomination, and that would be to then go on for the right to take on incumbent Democrat Bill Keaton. So yeah, it is a very quiet primary. If you didn't know it was happening, you probably wouldn't even know it was happening as you went out today. So
yeah, and I know that also this is a little rare in that the election is actually on a Thursday. And if I remember correctly, it's because when they wanted to hold the primary, it conflicted with a Jewish holiday. So I think that's why they moved it to Thursday. So that's another reason why people may be confused about this primary election day. And I know that locally, I think our Don Amata had an opportunity to speak with Election Commission Chairwoman Elizabeth Camara, and she's not expecting a very high turnout at all. And I think that's the same statewide. Is that what you're hearing as well?
Yeah, the Secretary of State earlier this week said he was expecting about a turnout of 8 to 10%. Just before I came in here at 2 o'clock this afternoon, I noticed an update from the Boston Elections Office. Their turnout so far was at 3%.
Wow.
For the day. So, we've had a reporter go out to a couple of the polls this morning in Fall River. Basically, none of them, I think, had reached triple digits through the early afternoon in terms of number of voters. And out in the towns where we had a photographer, it was, I think if you called it a trickle of voters, you'd probably be generous today. So, there's not like we said before, there's not much to really cast your ballot on that's going to make a choice in anything. So it seems people are just passing on this one and hopefully looking forward to November when the presidential race is on the ballot.
Right. That's going to be my next topic of discussion. Obviously, that the top of the ballot in November is the presidential race. That always draws people out. But again, even after that, other than the congressional races, a lot of the local state rep races here in Fall River and the county races are still going to be unopposed, as many of those individuals, be they Democrats or Republican, are running unopposed. So after the presidential race, not much on the ballot going forward, but we'll talk more about the November election as we get closer. But again, if you do want to vote today on primary day, you have until 8 o'clock tonight to do so. All right, start of school this week in the city of Fall River. Everyone's back at the public school system here in the city, and also some of our other high schools and charter schools and the like. Seems to have been smooth sailing. Is that what you're hearing as well thus far?
Yes, I think there were probably the usual hiccups that come with the first days and week of school. You tend to hear the concerns regarding transportation and bus routes running late and that kind of thing. Although, from my experience, that's not unusual for the first week of school, and is something that usually gets itself worked out as, districts take or add bus stops to routes and that kind of thing. So it seems mostly smooth, and, students in Fall River were welcome to a nice experience yesterday morning through the high five
yep.
effort. Yeah. So Nice start to the school year here in Fall River, and basically everyone is back, I think, with the exception of some kindergartners in a couple of our neighboring towns.
Right. And of course, in the city of Fall River, new superintendent Matthew Malone. This is his first school year, so we'll be following along. I know the paper's done a good job in talking with him, and FRC Media News as well, about his plans for the coming year, and we'll be following that as we go along. Both our organizations will have more on South Coast Rail a little bit later in our show, but you also had an article just yesterday about a series of hearings that are being held in the region concerning South Coast Rail and its expansion into the South Coast, Fall River, and New Bedford. Seems like the momentum is still there, and I guess the Department of Transportation and the MBTA is just seeking more input. And I know they'll be here in Fall River next week.
Yeah, there's certainly with the proposal to shift away from the Stoughton route and move to the Middleborough extension. Mass DOT is coming back to the area to take input on the potential change. They were in New Bedford last night, where according to our sister publication, the Standard Times, the message was one of urgency from those who spoke, more interested in getting a connection to Boston done and as soon as possible, rather than potentially what may be the faster route that might take longer through Stoughton. The FROED board this morning, actually on Thursday, heard a plea from the mayor's office and the executive vice president Ken Fiola to also back the Middleborough route. So Mass DOT will be in Fall River on Wednesday, and that will be the opportunity for people locally to comment on the project.
Now, according to what was reported, it looks like that interim service could actually start sooner rather than later, at least to try to get the momentum in this region. Is that what you're reporting as well?
I'm not aware of the interim service, but right. That may be something they're looking at. I know there's some upgrades that need to be made to the rails to connect it. And I know, at least from the Taunton end of things, they have concerns about the Middleborough extension because it would dramatically alter the train station outlays in their area, including having to push one more southern into the south end of Taunton than they had previously planned for.
Yeah. And I know, boy, this is, since 1990. Remember Bill Weld, running for governor, talked about South Coast Rail, and it's been 26 years and still not a reality, but at least there's more discussions. It hasn't been shelved completely. And again, if you're interested in that public hearing here in Fall River, it'll be next Wednesday, late afternoon, early evening. We'll have more on that in just a few moments. Okay, Will, what's going on at the paper over the next few days?
Oh, this weekend, our Sunday paper will take a look backward. We've got the 15th anniversary of September 11th and the attacks. So we've talked to some local responders who went down there 15 years ago to kind of see what memories are still sticking with them and how they feel 15 years later. We'll also have full coverage of all the local ceremonies that are taking place, including the one at Battleship Cove at the state's official monument to the 9/11 attacks.
All right, Will, good stuff. We'll talk to you again next week. Take care.
All right, have a good weekend, Keith.
We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot job list from the Fall River Career Center. Hospice Case Manager, Registered Nurse. Amedisys of Fall River is looking for a full-time hospice case manager, registered nurse, to provide, coordinate, and direct hospice nursing and palliative care for terminally ill patients in their home. Job number 783-5352. Residential driver. Republic Recycling Services in Fall River is looking for a residential driver to safely operate a heavy commercial recycling truck to lift, load refuse, operate compactor, and dispose of collected material at their facility. Must have a Class A commercial driver's license, good time management, and customer service skills. Job number 783-5321. IT support technician for the Amazon Fulfillment Center. Amazon is looking for a full-time IT support technician for allocation and maintenance of IT equipment throughout the fulfillment center. must have experience in Microsoft Office applications, troubleshooting PCs, scanners, printers, and portable handheld terminals. Job number 783-0754. Dietary cook. Kindred Healthcare at its Highlander location in Fall River is looking for a part-time dietary cook to prepare exciting nutritional and healthy meals that meet the dietary guidelines for their residents. Job number 781-3612. Church sexton. A part-time church sexton needed to maintain the buildings and grounds at the First Congregational Church in Fall River. Duties and responsibilities include maintenance of the sanctuary, fellowship hall, bathrooms, church kitchen, library, and classrooms, gym, boiler room, and church offices. Job number 783-5185. Senior Project Engineer. Ocean Spray, located in Lakeville, Massachusetts, is looking for a senior project engineer to implement improvements and modifications for its packaging equipment and technological projects. Job number 783-5610. For more information on these or other positions, visit FRCmedianews.org or call the Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. The Massachusetts Department of Transportation is holding hearings to determine the amount of interest area residents and economic development officials have in extending South Coast Rail. The options: connecting interim rail service in and out of Boston from either Middleborough Fall River or Middleborough and Stoughton. Vice President of the Fall River Office of Economic Development, Ken Fiola, gave a presentation to the OED Board of Directors today to explain the benefit of a Middleborough-Fall River rail connection. Fiola told FRC Media News that state monies are available to pay for the multi-million-dollar upgrade to the tracks already in place.
There's $148 million set aside in the governor's construction improvement plan that was recently approved by the MBTA as well as Mass DOT that is specifically earmarked for South Coast Rail. It doesn't say South Coast Stoughton. It doesn't say South Coast Middleborough. So we would advocate that money be utilized to upgrade the tracks from Taunton into both Fall River and New Bedford. There's approximately between the two cities, there's about $34 miles of track. And the rule of thumb, it's probably $1 million to $1.5 million to upgrade each mile. So even if you doubled that, you'd be looking at, $68, maybe $70 million just in track improvements, which would be necessary to accommodate commuter rail.
Fiola also explains the benefit of interim commuter rail.
I think that commuter rail would help bring in more professional people into the area, and that would enhance the overall educational attainment level of the area, which would allow us the ability to attract different types of company to the region because our demographics would be changing. And people always want, if they're faced with a choice to work closer to home, they'll take that choice as opposed to commuting to Boston. However, we need to get that population base down here to take advantage of the housing costs and really understand and realize what the South Coast region has to offer. So it's a double-edged sword, in the fact that it's not going to necessarily solve our low educational attainment levels and other things that may impact unemployment rates, but I do think it's going to enhance the ability for this region to attract more middle-class and upper-middle-class people into the region.
The next public hearing on the Fall River Middleborough possibility is scheduled for next Wednesday, September 14th. That session will be held here at the Ellsbury Street campus of Bristol Community College. It starts at 6 p.m. and is open to the public. Solar panels that were installed on the roof of Morton Middle School several years ago should be in operation within a month, resulting in electricity savings for the city. The city's Director of Buildings and Grounds, Ken Pacheco, has an update.
It'll probably cover about 4% of their electricity use, which is huge. We own those panels as opposed to the other school buildings where we have a power purchase agreement, which means we pay someone a specific amount for our electricity and we allow them to put those panels on our roof for that.
How much did it cost for Morton?
Morton was $217,000, of which the city paid 20% of that.
So it was worth it for the long run.
Absolutely, absolutely. Solar is still expensive. The price has come down considerably over the years, but it is still an expensive way for cities and towns to spend their money. It's a long-term investment, so you need to be ready to make that short-term expense for that long-term investment.
But on Morton, the city actually paid it outright, so they own them.
The combination of the city and MSBA. So it was 80% of the cost of those panels were paid for by the state, MSBA, and the city paid 20%. So it's worth our while to do that. We may not be able to spend that kind of money or put the city in a situation of bonding for that kind of money, but this was part of the construction project. So.
Pacheco is also in favor of utilizing solar and other green energy options in future construction projects.
Would you like to see solar panels on other school buildings?
Absolutely. I think it's a big advantage to stabilize your usage or your cost for your usage over 10, 15, 20 years. So if it's possible, most of the time solar panels have a warranty of 20 years. So you're basically going to try and lock in all of your pricing for that long. If you think about what you could lock in pricing for, energy is a big one. If you can budget every year the same price you were budgeting for the last year, that would be a great thing. With everything going up, if that's stabilized, one less thing to worry about.
A program designed to help entrepreneurs start their businesses came to a close recently. Shelley Carduce, Executive Director of E for All, a nonprofit agency established to give entrepreneurs financial and educational help in developing their business plans, says $15,000 in awards were handed out to the winners.
We awarded $2,000 to Let's Write Life. It's a guided journal business that helps people fight depression. She also was our class speaker of the evening, very great speaker. We awarded $3,000 to Victor Knee. It's a line of pants that are for kids that are really kind of always ripping their pants. So it's like an indestructible knee. $4,500 went to Blooming Artisan, which is a DIY floral arrangement event. So kind of like the paint nights that you have, it would be you'd get your ladies together, you'd have some fun, get some wine, and just make some beautiful arrangements, some wreaths depending on the season. And our grand prize of $5,500 went to the Noodle Bowl, which is going to be a new upcoming restaurant featuring not just Asian, but all different types of noodle bowls from around the world. That's going to be in downtown New Bedford coming in the spring.
If you have a business idea you'd like to pursue and need some help, you can visit eforall.com. We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Welcome to Hot Dogs and Cool Cats. This week we're featuring Dusty. She's 7 weeks. That means in 1 week she will be available. I can tell you that she is very afraid of dogs, so if you have a dog in your house, she's probably not the kitten for you. But she is lovable. She's very sweet and very playful, and looks like she's very timid and cautious about the camera.
So this is Gigi. Gigi is a 3-year-old Silky Terrier. She's very calm, but very friendly and sweet. She does like to play. She likes toys. She does need some training. She's not too big on cues, but she's very sweet and very calm and gentle. So if you'd like to come see Gigi, you can come in every day except Wednesday, 11 to 4 at 300 Linwood Street at Forever Paws Animal Shelter.
Mother Teresa of Calcutta was canonized as Saint Teresa this week by Pope Francis at the Vatican. Here at home, you may recall that Saint Teresa visited New Bedford over 20 years ago, attracting thousands of people, including Diocese of Fall River Communications Director John Kearns. He tells FRC Media News that Saint Teresa's visit on June 14, 1995 was a day that he'll never forget.
There was so much excitement, so much anticipation, even in the weeks leading up to it, the days leading up to it. The morning she came was drizzly. She had come primarily to visit her sisters, who just a few years earlier had set up a convent in New Bedford and started ministry there. And she was in the United States, and one of her stops was New Bedford to check in with the sisters, which I think she does occasionally. She did. And then, so at the time, Bishop O'Malley decided that while she was in New Bedford, we would have a mass to honor her visit. And so that's what happened. And it was first come, first serve. There were thousands lined up in front of St. Lawrence to get in, a lot of media coverage. As I said, it was drizzly, a lot of people outside, not worrying about the rain. And the convent happens to be directly across the street from St. Lawrence Martyr Church in New Bedford, where the Mass was to be held. And we were all outside, and all of a sudden, the door of the convent opened, and out stepped Mother Teresa, escorted by some of her sisters, and I think the mayor of New Bedford, and there was a hush amongst all these people just looking at her. And she walked by, and the people started to clap, and it really was a powerful moment. The church was packed, obviously. At the end of the Mass, Mother Teresa got up and spoke probably for 15 to 18 minutes, thanking people for their prayers, asking them to continue to pray for her and the work of her sisters, but also reminding them, too, that they had a job to do, that we all need to reach out for, as she used to say, the poorest of the poor, and do what we can. As she used to say, do small things with great love. Everyone is capable of it.
That visit from St. Teresa will be rebroadcast in its entirety here on Channel 95 FRC TV this Sunday, September 11th, beginning at 6 p.m. That's it for this edition of FRC Media News. You can catch FRC Media News Thursdays and Fridays at 6 p.m., but you can join us online 24/7 at frcmedianews.org. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Thursday.